Hey. Time for another Out of This World story from rSpace. Some betrayals are quiet. Others come from a nurse. Statistically speaking, the odds were already stacked against trust, but who could have guessed she'd cheat with a patient? Today on rSpace, just another statistic. Wife had an affair with a patient. I made sure it cost her career and her marriage. I, 38 male, have been married to Kim, 36 female, for 9 years, though we dated for 3 years before that. Currently, she works as a nurse, and before you even lay into me about that, she wasn't a nurse when we got married. She graduated with a degree in microbiology, and it was a few years into our marriage that she said that she really wanted to pursue nursing. I already know all the stereotypes about dating people in the medical profession, especially when it comes to cheating. I'm pretty sure that you can't have expected me to divorce my wife because she wanted to become a nurse. I'd look crazy to anyone who tried to explain the situation to, so I just hoped that I'd get one of the good ones. Obviously, the fact that I'm writing this right now shows that I didn't. I still don't think I made the wrong choice because it would have been hard to divorce her, simply because she was trying to change her profession. But you can all think what you want to think. I'm sure if you were in my position, you might not have done anything different, despite what you might type out there. Just for a little more detail, she was working at a pharmaceutical company before she decided one day that she wanted to make more of an impact than she already was. Her aunt was a nurse, and after she spoke with her, she decided that she wanted to switch over to that career. As much as that stereotype about nurses popped into my head numerous times, it was very insecure for me to tell her she couldn't follow the new direction because I was scared she was going to cheat on me. It's not like every single nurse on the planet is unfaithful. I do admit, though, that if she had been a nurse when I met her, we probably wouldn't have gotten this far. She's been working at a hospital for several years now, and financially, it's been a good move for us because she earns a solid salary, and after her switch in a few years, she started to earn more than me. It's not like my salary is anything to scoff at, but I guess being in the medical profession helps. As you all know, nurses have to work shifts, including nights, so it wasn't exactly odd for me to sleep at home alone or for her to have to work weekends. Initially, I chalked it up to a bad memory. She'd tell me that she was free on one night or a weekend, but then when I got closer, she'd magically had a shift. Everything was decided at the start of the month, so it didn't make sense that shifts would suddenly appear where they hadn't been before. Like I said, I assumed that I was the one who wasn't remembering things properly because she always took an approach that made it seem like I was the one who had been mistaken. I eventually learned that I was being gaslit. At a point, I decided to note things on my calendar. If she said that she didn't have a shift, I would mark it minutes after so that I wouldn't be mistaken. Yet I noticed that the thing kept happening. Shifts popped up when there hadn't been any. I brought it up with her because I assumed that she might have been taking on extra shifts without telling me, but she said that wasn't the case. According to her, she had told me all along. I didn't let her know that I was tracking things on my calendar, and that was how I knew I wasn't mistaken. She's a smart woman though, and the next few times those shifts magically popped up, she started to claim it was because she took a shift from someone else. That just smelled off to me. For full reference, I'm an academic and I work in mathematics, so I like to consider myself a person who is better than average when it comes to logic and reasoning. I knew that something wasn't right, but I didn't want to jump to cheating as a conclusion since that was a pretty big conclusion for me to reach. Instead, I decided to be a good husband and have a talk with her. I asked her whether anything was going on at work because I had noticed that she was taking on more shifts than she should have in a single month, and it had been that way for some time. I told her that I was sure that shifts had been popping up where there weren't supposed to be shifts, and it had me concerned. Again, I tried to give her the benefit of the doubt, so I asked whether there was some kind of pressure at work or if she was taking on extra shifts for some kind of financial goal that she hadn't mentioned to me. She paused for a second and then told me that she was trying to make more effort to pay off her student loans because some of her colleagues didn't have to worry about that, and I felt like they were up a step. I told her I understood that, but if she wanted to do that, there was no reason why she couldn't have carried me all along. She said that she didn't because she knew I'd want to calculate and budget and put some of my salary towards paying it off, and she wanted to do it on her own. None of that sounded right to me. There was nothing odd about wanting to be free of student loans as quickly as possible, but she's never been one to reject help from me, and she's never been the kind of person to fall victim to peer pressure. It just didn't sound right to me, but if she was lying to me, there was a reason, and I knew that she wasn't going to let me know what it was, so I didn't bother to tell her that I was doubtful. I just said that I understood, and that regardless, it'd be a good idea for us to sit down and do the math to see how effectively we'd be able to pay off those loans. After we left that conversation, I was almost 100% certain that she had just hastily concocted that lie to avoid the situation we were in. I knew that there was something happening that she was trying to hide, and I think it was at that point that I first accepted very real possibility that she was cheating on me. Besides the shifts, I hadn't noticed anything drastically different in her behavior, so I didn't have much to use to corroborate my suspicions. I made a note that I was going to check her phone when I could, and I did so that very same night, once she had fallen asleep. I checked the group chat that she had with her colleagues, and I looked for the work roster for her last few months. I checked all the days that I had marked on my calendar, and I saw that truly she had been free on those days. She had chosen to lie that she had a shift for some reason. Sure, the more recent surprise shifts had been ones that she claimed to have taken on to make some extra money, but that didn't apply to the shifts before the time I confronted her. Those ones proved that she had been lying. At that point, I had to just dig through her messages to try and see what I could find. I saw a bunch of messages with her colleagues, some with family members, and some with friends. I almost skipped over the one that had the name saved as James Patient. Any of her patients that she was in contact with for whatever reason had that at the end of their names to distinguish them from her regular contacts. It was a pure whim that made me check it, and I was glad that I did, because the first thing I saw was them chatting in a very lewd way with one another. I kept scrolling, and it was clear that the relationship they had was incredibly inappropriate, not just because she was married, but because this person was supposedly one of her patients. I scrolled to the start of the conversation, and things had actually started off entirely professionally. However, it was at a point when James had supposedly gotten drunk, as he explained the next morning, that he started flirting with her, and seemingly sent her a picture of his penis, though it wasn't in the chat anymore. I suppose at that point, when she hadn't fully leaned into the affair, she deleted it because she still had something of conscience. However, once she decided that she didn't care about our marriage anymore, she didn't bother cleaning up the evidence that much. I had really wished that I was wrong. I didn't want it to be cheating because I felt like our marriage was going along fine, and I wanted to be right that the nurse I was married to wasn't like the rest. But look at how things ended up. I'm so hurt by her because I loved her so much. I can't say I love her anymore after this. I made sure that I took as much evidence as I could from that conversation because I know for a fact that I'm going to make a case for her with the nursing board. She's not supposed to be sleeping with her patients, so I'm sure they'll love to see what I have in store for them. But before I even get to that point, I'm going to kick her to the curb. There's no reason for me to be married to her if she's enjoying the company of another man to that point that she's making up fake shifts as a reason to leave the house without much of a worry. I'll be back to update once I've confronted her, but for now, I have her messages documented and I'll do my best to build the case I have against her even further. Faking shifts, gaslighting you, hiding messages with a patient. She's actively abusing trust at every level. And all the while, she's trying to make herself look like the responsible in paying off her loans? Please. That's just a cover story for her own choices. You've done everything right. You've documented, stayed calm, and approached this logically. Meanwhile, she's been playing a game with your life, your marriage, and your trust. You didn't fail here. She did. Update 1. I confronted Kim, my cheating wife, about what I had found on her phone, and needless to say, it turned out dramatic very quickly. The best part is that I recorded the entire thing on my phone, and she had no idea. The first part of this is in my last post, in case you didn't read that. Here's what happened. She told me that she had one of those magical shifts that weekend, and instead of just acting like a stupid man who had no idea he was being cheated on, I told her that I knew that wasn't the case. She looked at me, confused, and I told her that she didn't have a shift and that she was lying to me. I told her that she had been lying to me for a long time, and she had been gaslighting me too, because she made it seem like I was the one who couldn't remember things right. She asked me what I was talking about, and I told her that I knew what she has been going off to random nights and weekend shifts. I'm sure her heart was pounding in her chest, so I did my best to stretch things out and not get to the point. I told her I was giving her the chance to admit to what she had done, since that would be the only way she could save our marriage. Obviously not, but I just wanted to see whether she'd dig in her grave for herself. She didn't. She claimed that she didn't know what I was talking about, and I was definitely blowing some kind of misconception I had out of proportion. I told her that I knew about her affair with James, and I saw her eyes widen. I asked her if she wanted to explain herself at that point, or if she was going to continue trying to gaslight me. She didn't say anything to that, and I was certain that she was thinking of how she could lie to escape the situation that she was in. I wasn't going to let her think, so I kept putting pressure on her, asking her to explain why she was sleeping with one of her patients and why she felt that was so good that it was worth selling off our marriage. Eventually, with tears running down her face, she told me that she had made a big mistake. She said she had deflected him at the start, but before she knew it, she was charmed, and she allowed a temporary thing to go on for too long. I told her that it didn't matter if it was temporary or not. The problem was that it existed in the first place, and that was the big sin. It didn't matter if it happened once or if it went on for 6 months, though one was obviously worse than the other. She had stepped out on her marriage, and that was her sin. It wasn't something we were going to be able to fix. I let her know that I was going to start processing a divorce from the very next day. She began to cry profusely when she heard that, because now she had to deal with the consequences of her actions. It was in that moment that I realized that the tears she was crying were real. Despite the fact that she cheated on me and was enjoying the company of another man to such an extreme extent, she was actually heartbroken that I was tossing her away, because she wanted to have both. She wanted to have the loving husband who provides for her and knows all of her quirks and interests, but she also wanted to have the excitement of a fling that solely existed for the intimacy. She wasn't going to get both, though, because I was out of it, and I was sure that without me, her relationship with James would go sour quickly. We own the house that we live in, and I know that it is always recommended that you don't move out first if you want any chance to keep it, but I really wasn't thinking clearly at that moment. Everything I knew for the last several years was falling apart. So forgive me if my head was a mess. I packed up a bunch of my essentials, and I left minutes later. I've been out of the house since then, besides when I went to pick up a few more things. I've been staying at a hotel ever since. I've served her with divorce papers, and despite the fact that she really didn't want to sign them, she wanted to see if we could make things work, and I didn't budge an inch for her. Eventually she signed them, so we should begin the process sometime soon. I'm still going to make sure that I take her job from her, but for now, I'll wait, because if it hit too early, I might end up paying her alimony, and that's the last thing I want to do for a wife who can't even stay faithful to me. Update 2. I finally reached the end of the saga with my cheating wife, Kim, and I'm glad to say that I'm now happily divorced. It's a hard pill to swallow, but it is one of those things that I've wanted to conclude since it started. I'm glad that there's nothing that will bring us together from this point on. The actual divorce was annoying. We tried to settle, but it didn't go well. She wanted to keep the house, but I wanted to sell it and have us split the proceeds. She wanted my car, but I made it clear that the only way she'd get that would be if she were paying me alimony. She said that was ridiculous because that's a man's job, but I told her she earned more than I did, so in our case it became her job. She was never going to budge on that, and I knew it, so I made sure to annoy her with it as much as I could. I told her that she was the one who had been cheating, and she had been cheating in a very unethical manner, so she shouldn't feel as if she had the upper hand. She did her best not to acknowledge that. It wasn't a shock that things went to trial. As much as I didn't want a dragged-out divorce, that ended up helping me quite a bit. The judge wasn't sympathetic to her because not only had she cheated, but the fact that she had cheated with one of her patients didn't exactly give a good impression of her. Despite that, the judge didn't exactly rule in my favor. She got her wish to keep the house, and I didn't mind that since she'd be buying me out of it, and that would be a lot of money in my pocket once she refinanced. We'd also be splitting our joint savings down the middle. So she was ordered to pay me a relatively minimal alimony in the grand scheme of things, and we each got to keep our respective cars, so that was nice. I did wish she hadn't gotten to keep the house, though. She can have fun with a mortgage, though. Once that was through, it was time for me to have my last bit of revenge against her. I had all of the evidence ready to go, and I contacted the disciplinary committee for our state's nursing board and submitted all the evidence that I had. I know that sexual misconduct is taken very seriously, because there was one point during her career that she told me a colleague was being investigated for sexual misconduct, though they were eventually cleared. I knew she wouldn't be cleared, though, because James was still an occasional patient. I initially got a response from my complaint that it had been received, and sometime later, I was told that an investigation was opened against her. I was hoping that she'd reach out to me to scream and shout about how I was behind it all, but she never did. Then, a lot of time after that, I finally got a response, and I was genuinely overjoyed by what I saw. Her license had been permanently revoked for what they considered to be gross sexual misconduct, and as much as I knew I was destroying her life and the career that she worked so hard for, it wasn't merely an act of revenge. I was doing the right thing, because a nurse who can choose to sleep with her patients isn't the kind of person you want making professional decisions around you or your loved ones. It was only after I got an email informing me that the investigation had been concluded that she sent me an extremely long message. She said that she knew I was behind the entire thing, and she spent the entire thing cursing me out. There were several threats in there, claiming that she was going to make sure you pay for this, and that she was going to make sure that she found out where I lived at that point. The only thing I sent in response was a gif of a scared cartoon character, and that sent her off even more. Before you say that I need to get a protective order, I'm already on that, because I'm not going to take those threats lightly, and anything I can do to make her life even harder right now, I'm certainly going to do. I hope that she had a great time paying off the mortgage in her house while her nursing career is dead and gone. As much as I might have been the trigger for all of this, her unprofessional actions are what brought her to this point, so I don't need to feel a twinge of guilt anymore. At this point, there's no sugarcoating it. She's the architect of her own downfall. Every lie, every fake shift, every inappropriate message, that's all on her. You didn't ruin her life, she did, by showing just how untrustworthy and unethical she is. Reporting her to the nursing board wasn't just about revenge. It was the responsible thing to do. She proved she couldn't be trusted around vulnerable patients, and you made sure her misconduct had real consequences. What do you think of this? Share your thoughts with us in the comments. And thank you for joining us today on rSpace. Be sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on our next video. See you soon!